Anybody recognize the name Florence Chadwick? No? Florence Chadwick was an American distance swimmer. She became the first woman to swim the English Channel. She did it both ways. One time she attempted to swim from Catalina Island to the coast of California. That is a tremendous distance. Shark-infested waters. I mean, some of the big sharks are there. What made her attempt newsworthy was the reason that she didn't make it. See, it wasn't because of the cold water in the Pacific Ocean. It wasn't because she had muscle cramps. It wasn't because there were schools of sharks or schools of jellyfish. It wasn't even exhaustion after swimming 16 hours. I can't even imagine doing something like that. I had trouble swimming across the round 4-foot high pool in the backyard. But the reason she didn't make it was because of the fog. The fog. The fog rolled in and she wasn't able to see the coastline, and she quit. She quit, she climbed in the boat, and she found out she was less than a mile from the shore. If she could have seen through the fog, she would have made it. But the fog rolled in, and in her mind, she lost perspective. You know how that happens when the fog rolls in? It brings insecurities, it brings doubt, maybe a lack of direction, because we can't see. And it confused her thinking, and she could no longer see her way forward. And maybe it feels like that to you with the things that are happening today. The fog's rolled in, and we can no longer see the shore. Things aren't so clear anymore. Maybe we were dealing with a whole bunch of fog even before this crazy pandemic. Maybe someone you trusted betrayed you. Maybe someone you loved stopped loving you. Maybe you were already dealing with financial problems and now there's a layoff. Now you can't get to work because the business is closed. Maybe it was other health issues. And now on top of that, there's this. A group of 17 pastors were on a Zoom call, and one of the pastors happened to ask the others, how many of you feel the most discouraged in ministry that you've ever been? 15 of the 17 said they were. So our question is, as we spend time together today, and as we look at moving ahead, so what do you do when the fog rolls in? You know, sometimes we swim, and the fog rolls in, and we climb back in the boat, and then we blame the fog. I was doing great till the fog rolled in, but I can't control that. Certainly that's not my fault. I had a plan. I was working the plan. What am I supposed to do now? It just isn't my fault. And we feel angry and frustrated. Sometimes when the fog rolls in, we stop living in victory, and we get pretty good at becoming a victim. Some of the things that I see in victims is victims, well, they whine and complain. They focus on what's wrong. They keep a running list of what's not fair. Anybody have friends like that? You know, you can tell when someone's ready to quit because they ramp up their complaining. I went on a hike with someone back in the day. Notice I say back in the day, because I don't do a lot of hiking anymore. Went on a hike with someone one time, and about a mile into the walk, the person started complaining, "Man, is it hot out. It is really hot today. And man, I shouldn't have wore these new shoes. My shoes really hurt. Mosquitoes. The mosquitoes are terrible today." By the second mile, they had enough, and it was, "I'm just going home. I'm going back. I'm done." Here's some other things that victims do. You'll see that they blame and they criticize. Victims will blame God. Why did he let this happen? Why didn't he do something to change it? And victims will criticize. It's the government's fault. They screw up everything. It's the president's fault. It's because of this election. Congress is always a problem. They'll never get it right. Maybe it's even my parents' fault. Had they raised me differently, had they provided more, had they cared more, things would be different. And soon all the whining and complaining and the blaming and the criticize turns into anxiety and anger. You have to see in our culture today there is a lot of anxiety and anger. We're in the fog and we don't know what to do. We don't even know what's in the fog because we can't see. In John chapter 14, remember we've been talking about this. Jesus knows that the fog is going to come in on his followers. In his last discourse, after the Last Supper in the upper room, Jesus knows that his time on earth is limited. By the time we read this passage, Judas had already left to betray Jesus. He knows that it's happening now. One that I love has gone to betray me now. In a matter of hours, Jesus is going to be arrested and beaten. But Jesus' mind is on his followers. He wants to prepare them, well, for the fog. We talked about that before, remember? Jesus doesn't want them to be victims. He wants them to have victory. So you remember, he gave them a mission. Focus on this. Love as I loved. You remember later he taught them to make disciples. He wanted them to keep fixed on him and his stuff. And if they had any doubt as to who he is, he puts that to rest in this passage we'll look at today. John 14, verses 7 to 9. Jesus taught them, "If you really know me, you will know my Father as well. From now on, you do know him and have seen him." And the Apostle Philip said, "Lord, show us the Father, and that'll be enough for us." Philip thinks in his own mind, if he sees the Father, that would give him a perspective that would change everything. Let us see God, and that'll be enough. And Jesus says, Philip, what do you think we've been doing the last 3 years? Verses 9 to 11. Jesus answered, "Don't you know me, Philip, even after I've been among you for such a long time? Anyone who has seen me has seen the Father." Philip, anyone who has seen me has seen the Father. How can you say, "Show us the Father"? Jesus goes on. "Don't you believe that I am in the Father and that the Father is in me? The words I say to you, I do not speak on my own authority. Rather, it is the Father living in me who's doing his work. All of the stuff you see is the Father's work. Believe me when I say that I am in the Father and the Father is in me. Or at least believe on the evidence of the works themselves, on the stuff you see. Philip, in the fog, remember the words that I have spoken. Remember the stuff that I've done. And mostly, remember who I am. Jesus was constantly reassuring his followers of who he is. There's something great that happens in John's gospel. The Gospel of John talks about 7 I am statements Jesus says about his identity. Up to John 14, Jesus has already made 6 of the 7 I am statements. We'll look at the 7th in another message. Jesus says, I am. Now, if you remember in the Old Testament where God said to Moses said, how are the people going to believe what's happened here? And God said, tell the people I am has sent you. From then on, when the Jews heard I am, it always referred to God. So when Jesus makes these I am statements, he's telling them he is God. Anyone who has seen me has seen the Father. Each of these I am statements not only indicates Jesus is God, but it also has profound implications on our lives. These I am statements tell us who Jesus is, and it tells us here what it means to do when the fog rolls in. Here's 6 of the 7 I am statements. These are all found before John 14. The first one shows up in John chapter 6 and verse 35. Jesus has fed the 5,000, now they're back for more. I like that part of the story because they're like me. One helping is never enough. I'm coming back for more. John 6:35. Then Jesus declared, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. Remember being there for that part, Philip? Remember seeing me do that? Remember you collecting up those baskets at the end? In the fog, you may ask yourself, who's going to provide for me today? Who's going to care for me today? And Jesus says, I am. I am. I am the bread of life. Second I am statement is in John chapter 8 and verse 12. When Jesus spoke again to the people, he said, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Now, if you remember, this comes just before Jesus healed a man who was born blind. He comes and he gives light to the physically blind, and to the spiritually blind, he provides light. Weren't you there for that, Philip? Didn't you see that? Do you remember that? When it's foggy and you need light and ask, who's going to provide it? Jesus says, I am. I am the light of the world. Next I am statement is found in John chapter 10 and verse 9. Jesus says, I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. Folks, there's only one way in, and it's through me. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. Do we remember that in the fog? Next I am statement comes also in John chapter 10, and it's in verse 11. Jesus says, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. Now Philip steps up and says, wait a minute, that hasn't even happened yet. But Jesus said, it's gonna, and it's gonna happen soon. Remember, these words are from my Father. When we ask who's going to pay the price for my sin, Jesus says, I am. Next I am statement comes after Lazarus has died. Remember, Jesus shows up and he's late. Anybody ever been late? Just say, hey, Jesus was late. And look what happened. And Martha and Mary are really upset because in their minds they think if he had come, Lazarus wouldn't have died. John 11:25, Jesus said to her, he was talking to Martha, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live even though they die. And he raises their brother to life. Remember that, Philip? When you ask, show us the Father, do you remember what you saw and what you heard? My friends, when we're in the fog and we can't see, Jesus can. Jesus is the resurrection and the life. He makes dead things alive. When we ask, who's going to raise us up? Who's going to give us life? Jesus says, I am. Sixth I am statement, and the last one we'll look at today, we talked about 2 weeks ago. It's found in John 14:6. Remember that? Most of us know it by heart. Remember Thomas asked Jesus a question. Jesus answered, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Remember that? Philip, remember that I said, I am the Father and the Father are one? Remember, my words are his words. In the fog when you're lost, remember, I am the way. Can't understand the things of this world. Everything is so complicated and phony and messed up. Remember, I am the truth. Living in a world that's dying, Jesus says, I am the life. Remember, my words are my Father's words. Here's something really cool that happens in the Gospel of John also. John gives us these 7 I am statements of Jesus to help us to know him and to know the Father, to show who he is. But he also backs that up with 7 signs, 7 evidences that will help us in our belief. I want to touch on those real quickly, but I want you to see Jesus' power over things. First sign we see in the Gospel of John is Jesus turned water into wine. Jesus has power over the ordinary things of life. Second sign, Jesus healed an official son. Remember that story? The son wasn't present when he was healed. Jesus has power over distance. Third sign, Jesus healed a man paralyzed for 38 years. Jesus has power over time. There's nothing done that he can't undo. Here's a fourth sign in John. Jesus fed the 5,000. Jesus has power over our daily needs. So we pray, give us this day our daily bread. Fifth sign, Jesus walked on water. and we remember that Jesus has power over nature and the physical world. Sixth sign, Jesus healed a blind man. Jesus has power over the human body and sickness. Seventh sign in John's Gospel is something we've already spoken of. Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead. Jesus has power over life and death. So in the fog, remember who Jesus is. That he is God. Remember what he said. All the stuff he said is the Father's words. And remember what he has done. When we can't see the way forward, when things are confusing in this life, think on Jesus. I'd like to give you an acronym to help us through when we get in the fog. And I thought it would be cool that we would use the word fog as the acronym. And in the acronym FOG, the F stands for focus on Jesus. When we're in the fog, focus on Jesus, what he has said, what he has done. Hebrews tells us to run the race that is mapped out for us and do it with perseverance, fixing our eyes on Jesus. You know, it's comforting for me as a pastor to see how we have done over the last 6 months. No fall off of task. Staying together in prayer and encouraging one another. Loving just as Jesus loves. Sharing him. We're not swimming alone through the fog. We're swimming together through the fog in the power of the Holy Spirit. Loving with that kind of power. Second letter of our FOG acronym is the letter O, and it stands for offer thanks. As we reflect on Jesus, believing in him, loving the way that he loves, knowing that he promised that he's going to prepare a place for us, we get a room. Should make us full of gratitude and thanks. Ed Dobson is a pastor who wrote a book called Seeing Through the Fog. It's the idea behind this message. It outlines his life dealing with Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS. I don't know that there's a more horrible disease because your body falls apart and your mind is intact. He tells in this book how he battled through the fog of this disease and how God has blessed him and how he stays grateful. He says, you know, there are some things that I'm not real grateful for. I can no longer button my shirt. I can no longer raise my right arm. I can no longer brush my teeth with my right arm. I can no longer eat with my right arm. I got to use my left, and that's becoming a challenge too. And I know that these things will become worse and worse. So it begs the question, what do I have for which to be thankful? And he says, so much. So much. And then his writing turns into a prayer. And he says, Lord, thank you. Thank you for waking me up this morning. Thank you for my wonderful family and my wonderful church family that helps me with everything. Thank you that I was able to get out of bed this morning. Thank you that last night I had a wonderful, restful sleep. Thank you that I am the focus of so much love. Thank you that I can still talk. Thank you that people still listen. Thank you that I can still eat. Now I get to eat with friends. And thank you that I have this peace. With all this going on with my body, you have kept my mind clear and sharp. And thank you for saving me from my sin so completely. And thank you for using me as your instrument. I get to talk for you as long as I can. And thank you that in this fog, I also find you. And you know what's on the other side. God, I know that this day will never be repeated. I can't live it over again. Please help me to live it to the fullest. My friends, we are not people who panic in the fog. We are people who fight through it. We are people that let God lead us through it. Remember when the Apostle Paul and Silas were in prison? They're chained up in a prison. And Paul gets this brilliant idea, how about we worship? And they start singing. Acts 16:25. About midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the other prisoners were listening to them. Put chains on me and I'll sing. Put chains on me and I'll pray. Put chains on me and I'll worship, even when I can't see through the fog. The story ends with the jailer and his entire family being baptized. And so, church family, we have tremendous opportunity to let our light shine, fog and all. Maybe somebody will see it in the fog and follow us. No time to be scared. It's a time to worship God with grateful hearts. Let me finish the acronym. F is focus on Jesus. O is offer thanks. And G is get an eternal perspective. In John 14, Jesus is talking to his closest disciples about heaven. We talked about that last week. He's helping them see what is on the other side of the fog. 1 Corinthians 13:12 tells us, "For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known." Day is coming when the sun shines bright and everything is clear. Will there be fog in this world? Surely there will, because we live in a fallen world. But we get to know the perspective on what's on the other side of the fog. 2 months, almost to the day, after Florence Chadwick failed at her attempt to swim from Catalina Island to the shore of California, she tried again. This time the fog was worse than the first time. But this time she made it. What was the difference? She said this time she kept a mental picture in her mind of the shoreline. And she refused to give up. I love that. I love that image. She's swimming for 16 hours. Most of it in the fog, most of it where she can't see. But the picture in her mind is the picture of the shoreline. just a couple more strokes away.